Everyone said I was living the dream: promotions, respect, success. But behind the smile I was breaking, until one ordinary day I walked out of the office and never came back. I was 22 when I landed my first real job. Fresh out of college, suit too big, shoes too stiff, and this fire in my chest that made me believe I could outwork the world. I wanted to prove myself, not just to my boss or my parents or whoever else was watching, but to myself. I wanted to matter. I wanted to be seen. I started as an intern at an insurance firm in Atlanta. Nothing glamorous. Cubicles, stale coffee, cold air conditioning blasting even in winter. But to me, that place looked like a skyscraper of opportunity. I remember getting there early, staying late, skipping lunches to take on extra reports. My manager, Dave, used to laugh and say, "You trying to live here, Aaron?" Maybe I was. At least there, people noticed me. By the end of my second year, I had moved up twice. Promotions came fast. I dressed sharper, shook hands harder, started using words like pipeline and deliverables like they meant something more than paper and stress. And God, I loved the attention. I remember the first time someone asked me to speak at a team meeting. My hands were sweating under the table, but I smiled like I belonged. "Aaron's got it," they said. "He's solid." Those words stuck to me like armor. I stopped seeing my friends as much. Missed birthdays. Forgot dinners. My mom called me one night, left a voicemail asking if I was all right because I had not come by in 2 months. I listened to it in my car, sitting in the garage with the engine running but the radio off, just staring at the dashboard. I told myself I was building something, that the sacrifices would pay off, that I could always catch up with the people I loved once things slowed down. Only, they never did. Instead, I got busier. I started managing people. Then I started managing managers. Late nights turned into all-nighters. I stopped eating real meals, just protein bars and energy drinks at my desk. People around the office called me a machine. They meant it as a compliment. Every review was glowing. Every quarter, my name climbed a little higher on the list. They gave me a glass plaque at year 5, to Aaron Mathis, for relentless excellence. I took it home, set it on the bookshelf, and went back to answering emails. I thought I had everything I ever wanted. Until one night, I woke up at 3 in the morning and could not move my left hand. Just lay there, staring at it like it belonged to someone else. That was the first crack, and it was just the beginning. I told myself it was just a pinched nerve. Stress. Bad posture. Too much typing. I shrugged it off and went in early the next morning like nothing happened. But something had changed. That hand thing, it came back. Not every night. Just enough to keep me worried. I stopped sleeping right. My jaw would clench so hard at night that I cracked a molar. My dentist said I must have been grinding my teeth in my sleep. Yeah, no kidding. Still, on the outside, I looked like a guy who had it all together. I was 30 years old and already a senior director. People were calling me one of the rising stars. At company events, execs would pat me on the back and say they saw me going far. Some even asked if I wanted to try the coast. That meant L.A. or New York. Bigger offices, more pressure, but also more status. My boss said it like a reward. "You've earned it, Aaron." What I had actually earned was a prescription for beta blockers. The funny thing is, the more miserable I got, the more they celebrated me. It was like they were applauding my ability to suffer in silence. My inbox was always full. Calendar packed edge to edge. My phone buzzed even during bathroom breaks. My meals were eaten standing up. I developed this weird twitch in my left eye that would not go away. At one point, I convinced myself it was fine because at least it was not both eyes. My apartment looked like a hotel room someone forgot to clean. Half-done laundry. Empty containers of takeout. A gym membership I had not used in 9 months. There were messages from my sister, asking when I would visit. From my best friend, Greg, reminding me that his wedding was coming up. My mom, again, saying she missed me. I ignored most of them. Told myself I would make it up later. There was always a later. My last girlfriend left me with a single line: "I don't think you even live in your own life." She was right. But instead of taking that as a sign, I just buried myself deeper. They need me, I told myself. Just get through this quarter. Then maybe you can breathe. Only, when the quarter ended, there was always another one. And then came the promotion I thought I had been chasing all along. Vice President of Strategic Operations. A title so polished it sounded like it belonged on a building. They flew me out, handed me the contract in a leather folder, and toasted me at a rooftop bar with overpriced whiskey. And I smiled through the whole thing. Because by then, I knew I was too far gone to stop. But what I did not know, what none of them knew, was that I had already started planning my escape. I started doing this thing where I would stare at myself in the mirror before work. Not for vanity, not to fix my tie, just to check, to see if I still looked human. Some mornings, I barely recognized the guy staring back at me. The bags under my eyes were permanent now. My skin looked gray, hollow, like I had not seen the sun in weeks, which was true most days. I would splash cold water on my face, force my mouth into a smile, and say it out loud like some ritual. "You are doing great." I did not know why I said it. No one was around. No one was listening. Except maybe me. I kept showing up, kept performing. To everyone else, I was still that guy. The one with the answers. The fixer. The leader. But inside, I felt like a house full of termites. Still standing, but one hard knock away from collapse. Sleep became optional. Meals were forgettable. My heart started doing this flutter thing, like it would skip or stutter, especially when I was sitting still. I Googled it once. The internet said I might be anxious. No kidding. I started getting paranoid, too. I would read emails 2 or 3 times, convinced I was missing something. I would stare at the screen so long the letters started swimming. Then came the Sunday I forgot how to breathe. I was sitting on my couch, watching some mindless show with a plate of cold food in my lap, when out of nowhere, this crushing wave hit me. Like my lungs locked up, my chest tightened, my fingers went numb. For a second, I thought I was dying. I managed to dial 911, and by the time the EMTs showed up, I was drenched in sweat and shaking. They said it was a panic attack. A panic attack. Me, the guy who was always calm, always collected. I nodded and thanked them and said I was fine. I was not. That night, I opened my laptop and typed something I had not let myself write before. How to quit your job when everyone expects you to stay. I scrolled for hours. Articles, forums, stories from people who had walked away from everything they built. Some found peace. Others regretted it. But one story stopped me cold. It was about a man who had a breakdown during a board meeting. Right in the middle of a presentation, he just froze. Said he forgot where he was. They had to escort him out. The article said he never came back. Said he disappeared. There was no photo. No name. Just a single sentence buried near the end. He walked out of the room and never returned. I stared at that line for a long time. Because deep down, I felt it. That was exactly what I wanted to do. And I was closer than I thought. I told myself I was planning my exit. But in reality, I was just fantasizing about it. Reading other people's stories gave me a strange comfort, like I was living through them without having to take the leap myself. Meanwhile, at work, the cracks started showing. I snapped at an analyst during a meeting. Not loud, but sharp enough to leave the room silent. I apologized later, but I could feel the shift, the way people glanced at me differently, like they were recalculating something they had always assumed about me. Even Dave, my old manager who had moved up alongside me, started asking if I was okay. That question became a chorus. HR offered me an executive wellness retreat. My boss recommended mindfulness apps. Someone left a stress ball on my desk like a joke. I played along, smiled, thanked them, pretended I was fine. But the truth was, I had started keeping a bag under my desk. Just a small duffel, nothing dramatic. A spare shirt, running shoes, a phone charger, my passport. At first, I told myself it was practical. You never know, right? But deep down, I knew what it was. It was my lifeboat. I started looking at flights late at night. Not vacation flights. One-way tickets. Cities I had never seen. Names that sounded like escape. But here is the twist. I was not the only one noticing my slow unraveling. Someone at work had already started whispering about me. I found out when a colleague, someone I thought barely paid attention, pulled me aside after a meeting. He spoke low, almost like a warning. Said there were talks upstairs about my capacity. I asked what that meant. He just shrugged and said, "People are starting to wonder if you're burning out. And you know how this place handles that." I didn't know. They chewed you up, smiled, wished you well, then replaced you before your chair was even cold. The fear that had been keeping me there flipped. Suddenly, staying felt more dangerous than leaving. One night, after everyone had gone home, I stood in the middle of my office. Lights off, city glowing below, my reflection staring back at me from the window. It felt like I was looking at a ghost. And in that moment, I decided, no more fantasizing, no more planning, No more waiting for the right time. I was going to do it. Not someday. Soon. But the thing about making a plan in your head is that life does not always wait politely for you to act on it. Sometimes it jumps first. And that was exactly what happened next. It was a Tuesday. That is what gets me, how normal it was. You expect breaking points to come with fireworks or sirens or some kind of warning. But this was just another Tuesday. I woke up at 5 like always. Got dressed in the same pressed shirt. Ate the same sad protein bar. Drove the same exact route to the office. Parked in the same spot. Rode the same elevator with the same guy who always smelled like too much cologne. And then I sat down at my desk. Emails were already piling up. There was a strategy call in 15 minutes. A lunch with a vendor at noon. Back-to-back reviews in the afternoon. It was a loaded day, just like every other. But something was different. It started with a folder. Just a plain blue one, nothing special. It sat on my desk with my name on it. But the handwriting was not familiar. I opened it. Inside were copies of old performance reviews. All glowing. Then, stapled to the back, a short memo. Aaron has exceeded expectations but may no longer be sustainable in high-stress roles. Recommend shadowing for potential succession planning. Succession planning. They were preparing to replace me. While I was still sitting in the chair, I just stared at the paper. My hands did not shake. My chest did not tighten. I felt nothing. Just this quiet. Like a bell had gone off in my head that only I could hear. I stood up. I grabbed my jacket, my bag, and that folder. I walked past the cubicles, past the conference room, where people were already gathering for the call I was supposed to lead. Someone waved. I nodded. I did not say goodbye. I did not leave a note. I just walked. Through the lobby. Out the front door. Into the street. No one stopped me. No one even noticed. The city air hit me like a slap. It was cold and sharp, and for the first time in years, I actually felt it. I looked up at the sky. Not for a sign. Just to prove to myself that it was still there. Then I turned my phone off. And I kept walking. Because when they finally noticed I was gone, I wanted them to wonder where I went. And the truth was, I did not even know myself. The first thing I noticed after walking out was how loud the world felt. I had spent years inside glass towers, fluorescent lights humming, keyboards clicking, muted conference calls blending into each other. Outside, the city's noise felt like it had teeth. Car horns, chatter, the wind snapping at my coat. It was almost violent in its freedom. I kept walking without a plan. Past the cafe where I used to grab coffee before meetings. Past the park where interns ate lunch on the benches. Past the train station. My legs moved on autopilot. At some point, I ducked into a small diner, the kind with cracked vinyl booths and a flickering neon sign that read, "Open." I sat down, ordered a coffee I barely touched, and stared at the steam rising from the cup. It hit me then. I had no idea what to do next. For years, my life had been planned down to the minute. Calendars, agendas, deadlines. Now there was nothing. No meetings. No tasks. No identity beyond the job I had just walked away from. I pulled out my phone to check for messages, but it was still off. I put it back in my pocket. I was not ready to turn it on. Not yet. A waitress, mid-40s, tired eyes but kind voice, refilled my cup and asked if I was all right. I lied and said yes. She gave me a look that said she did not believe me, but did not press. I sat there until the sun started to dip behind the skyline. Outside, the streetlights blinked on. People hurried home, heads down, lives in motion. I felt like a ghost watching the living. Then my phone buzzed. I had forgotten it was even in my pocket. Somehow, it had turned itself back on. Or maybe I had pressed something without thinking. The screen lit up. 17 missed calls. A flood of unread texts. Most from the office. A few from numbers I did not recognize. But one name froze me. It was Greg, my best friend. The guy whose wedding I had missed. We had not spoken in over a year. His message was short. Saw the news. Call me, please. The news? I opened a browser on my phone, hands shaking for the first time all day, and typed my own name into the search bar. The first headline hit me like a punch. Vice President of Strategic Operations walks out midday. Company investigating potential misconduct. Misconduct. They were not just replacing me. They were trying to bury me. At first, I thought it was a joke. Some clickbait headline written by a bored intern. But the deeper I scrolled, the worse it got. My photo, corporate headshot, smiling like a politician, sat next to words I had never imagined tied to my name. Misconduct. Financial irregularities. Potential breach of fiduciary duty. They were painting me like a thief. I read every article twice, 3 times. Most were vague. No one said exactly what I had supposedly done. Just that sources close to the matter claimed there were red flags discovered after my abrupt departure. It was brilliant in a way. I had given them the perfect story. A senior exec walks out midday, leaves no note, cuts off contact. Of course they would spin it. Make me the problem. Protect themselves. My hands went cold around the phone. Greg's text flashed again. Call me, please. I stepped outside the diner and dialed. He picked up on the first ring. You okay? He asked. His voice was low, urgent. I said nothing for a second, just listened to the city traffic in the background. You've seen it, I finally said. Yeah, he replied. But I also know you. And I know you didn't do what they're saying. I almost laughed. I didn't do anything. That's the problem. Greg hesitated. Aaron, they've been planning this for a while. Remember that guy, Fisher? The one you blocked from that promotion last year? I did. Fisher. Ambitious. Charming. Dangerous in a way I had learned to recognize. He's been sliding into the VP chair since you left, Greg said. They needed you out of the way. This is how they're justifying it. I leaned against the brick wall of the diner. My breath came out in white puffs. They can't just make things up. They don't have to, Greg said. All they need is doubt. You left. No statement. No plan. They control the narrative now. My phone buzzed again. Emails from journalists. Requests for comment. For a moment, I pictured myself going back, marching into that office, demanding answers. But then another image hit me. Me, sitting back at that desk, chained again. They would love that. No, I said quietly into the phone. No what? Greg asked. No, I'm not going back. Not to fix their mess. Not to save face. Not to give them the ending they want. There was silence on the line. Then Greg said, Then what are you going to do? I looked down the street. Neon lights flickered in a window across from me. A bus hissed to a stop, its doors opening like an invitation. I don't know, I said, but I'm not done yet. Because for the first time in years, I felt something other than exhaustion. I felt angry. And underneath the anger, I felt free. I got a burner phone the next morning. Not because I was hiding. Well, maybe partly. But mostly because I needed to start fresh. No synced calendars. No endless notifications. No reminders of who I used to be. I booked a week at a motel out in the edge of town. It was cheap, quiet, and nobody asked questions. I shut the blinds, spread the news articles across the bed, and started drawing lines. They wanted a narrative? I would give them the real one. The plan was simple. Gather every document, every receipt, every timeline I could prove. I still had access to an old work drive. They had forgotten to cut me out of it. Rookie mistake. I downloaded everything I could before they noticed. For once, all that obsessive record-keeping paid off. Emails, spreadsheets, meeting notes. I was not just clean, I was spotless. And more than that, I had evidence that some of the numbers they were using against me were fudged long before I ever touched them. The deeper I dug, the more obvious it became. They were feeding off my silence. And I was done being silent. But just when I thought I had a grip on things, my past came knocking, literally. There was a knock at the motel door. Not housekeeping. When I opened it, I froze. It was Megan. We had not spoken in almost 2 years. Last I heard, she had moved across the country. She looked older somehow, more tired, maybe, but still had that same direct stare that used to cut through all my nonsense. What are you doing here? I asked. I read the articles, she said. Then I saw a comment on one of them. I think it was from Greg. He said you were okay, that you were figuring things out. And I knew exactly what that meant. I stepped aside and let her in, mostly because I was too stunned to do anything else. She walked in like she had been there before, because once she had. Megan had been the one person who ever told me I was more than my job. She used to ask questions I hated. Things like, who are you without the title? Back then, I never had a good answer. She sat down on the edge of the bed, scanning the mess of papers and scribbled notes. You really walked out, she said softly. I didn't think you ever would. I didn't think so either, I replied. She nodded, but her face was serious. You know they're trying to destroy you, right? This isn't just spin anymore. They're setting you up for something bigger. I know, I said, but I have proof. I'm not talking about the company, she said. I stared at her. Then who? She reached into her bag and pulled out a folder of her own. Fisher isn't working alone, she said. There's someone else. Someone close to you. I opened the folder, and what I saw made my blood run cold. Inside Megan's folder were screenshots, emails, calendar invites, even voice memos. I flipped through them slowly, my hands tightening with each page. And then I saw the name. Dave, my old manager. The one who used to slap me on the back and call me kiddo, even when I was running circles around him. The one who told me to take the VP promotion because you earned it, Aaron. He had not just been watching me fall. He had been pushing. Turns out, Dave had been in talks with Fisher for months. Emails confirmed it, timelines, document leaks, subtle manipulations of internal reports. They had been laying the groundwork long before I ever walked out that door. They needed me gone. Fisher wanted my title. Dave wanted cover for his own bad calls. And together, they had fed HR and legal just enough doubt to poison the well. All they had to do was wait. And I handed them the match when I left without a word. I sat back on the edge of the bed, the weight of it sinking into my chest. Megan sat across from me, watching but not saying anything. She did not need to. The truth was already bleeding through the silence. I trusted him, I said finally. My voice was raw, like something had broken open in my throat. You were his competition, she replied. And you didn't even know it. I thought back to all those late nights. The advice Dave gave me. The way he always said he had my back. It was all so well rehearsed. Like he had studied me, figured out exactly when I was most vulnerable, and then played the role of the mentor until the moment I became a threat. I thought I was paranoid, I said. Thought maybe I was just burned out. You weren't wrong, Megan said. You were just surrounded. I nodded slowly. I am going to burn it all down, I said. Not with fire. Not with revenge fantasies. But with the truth. Every file. Every email. Every quiet act of betrayal. I was going to lay it bare. I would not crawl back to the office and beg for my name to be cleared. I would not wait for them to spin the story again. I was going to tell my own. And I knew exactly where to start. But what I did not know, what I could never have seen coming, was what was waiting for me when I finally turned my phone back on. Because while I was preparing for war, something had already broken loose. When I turned my phone back on, I expected chaos. What I got was something worse. Silence. No new calls. No messages. No alerts. But one email sat at the top of my inbox. No subject line. Just a single sender name I had not seen in years. Mom. I opened it. Aaron. I saw the news. I do not know what happened, but I know what they are saying cannot be the full story. If you are okay, please call me. If not, just know you are not alone. Love always. I stared at the screen for a long time. Because that was the moment I realized the story was never really about the company. It was not about the titles, or the money, or the betrayals. It was not even about the plan to clear my name. It was about me, and how I had let the world convince me that being needed was the same as being loved. That climbing meant winning. That staying busy meant staying valuable. But the truth? I had been dying in plain sight. And no one stopped me, because I looked like success. That night, I sent out everything. The truth. The documents. The timeline. I wrote a letter and published it publicly. An open confession, not of guilt, but of how broken the system had made me. It spread fast. People were angry. Some defended the company. Others said I was brave. A few just said, finally, someone said it. But I did not stick around to read the comments. I packed what little I had and left town. Not to run, but to breathe. I rented a cabin a few hours north, near a lake I used to visit as a kid. The Wi-Fi was terrible. The mornings were quiet. And for the first time in a long time, I slept through the night without waking up in a panic. Megan visited once, stayed for a few days, then left without asking for more. Greg called, said he was proud of me. My mom sent a second email. This one said simply, "You did the right thing. You always did. I am sorry I waited this long to say it." I did not reply. I just sat there and let the words settle like sunlight through a dusty window. Weeks passed, then months. The company moved on. So did Fisher. So did Dave. But I had something they never would. Peace. Not perfect. Not constant. But real. Sometimes I still get the urge to check the news, to see if they're talking about me again. But I stop myself. Because I know now, success without peace is just performance. And the bravest thing I ever did was not walking into that building. It was walking out and not looking back.